a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is an American neo-Western crime drama television series created and produced by Vince Gilligan. The show originally aired on the AMC network for 5 seasons, from January 20, 2008 to September 29, 2013. Set and filmed in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the series tells the story of Walter White, a struggling and depressed high school chemistry teacher who is diagnosed with lung cancer. Together with his former student Jesse Pinkman, White turns to a life of crime by producing and selling crystallized methamphetamine to secure his family's financial future before he dies, while navigating the dangers of the criminal world. The title comes from the Southern colloquialism, breaking bad, meaning to raise hell or turn to a life of crime. Walter's family consists of his wife Skyler, son Walter Jr. and daughter Holly. The show also features Skyler's sister Marie Schrader and her husband Hank, a DEA agent. Walter hires lawyer Saul Goodman, who connects him with private investigator and fixer Mike Ehrmantraut, and in turn Mike's employer, drug kingpin Gus Fring. The final season introduces the characters Todd Arquist and Lydia Rodarte Quayle. Breaking Bad is widely regarded as one of the greatest television series of all time. By the time the series finale aired, it was among the most watched cable shows on American television. The show received numerous awards, including 16 Primetime Emmy Awards, 8 Satellite Awards, 2 Golden Globe Awards, 2 Peabody Awards, 2 Critics' Choice Awards and 4 Television Critics Association Awards. For his leading performance, Cranston won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series 4 times, while Aaron Paul won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series 3 times. Anna Gunn won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Drama Series twice. In 2013, Breaking Bad entered the Guinness World Records as the most critically acclaimed show of all time. A spin-off prequel series, Better Call Saul, starring Bob Odenkirk and Jonathan Banks, debuted on February 8, 2015, on AMC. Like Breaking Bad, the series has received critical acclaim. Premise: set in Albuquerque, New Mexico between 2008 and 2010, Breaking Bad follows Walter White as he is transformed from a meek high school science teacher who wants to provide for his family after learning he has terminal cancer into a ruthless player in the local methamphetamine drug trade. Initially making only small batches of meth with his former student Jesse Pinkman, Walter and Jesse eventually expand to make larger batches of a special blue meth that is incredibly pure and creates high demand. Walter takes on the name Heisenberg to mask his identity. Because of his drug-related activities, Walt eventually finds himself at odds with his family, the Drug Enforcement Agency through his brother-in-law Hank Schrader, the local gangs, and the Mexican drug cartels and their regional distributors, putting his life at risk. Conception: Breaking Bad was created by Vince Gilligan, who spent several years writing the Fox series The X-Files. Gilligan wanted to create a series in which the protagonist became the antagonist. Television is historically good at keeping its characters in a self-imposed stasis so that shows can go on for years or even decades, he said. When I realized this, the logical next step was to think, how can I do a show in which the fundamental drive is toward change? He added that his goal with Walter White was to turn him from Mr. Chips into Scarface. The show title is based on a Southern colloquialism meaning, among other things, raising hell, and was chosen by Gilligan to describe Walter's transformation. According to Time Entertainment editor Lily Rothman, the term has a broader meaning and is an old phrase which connotes more violence than raising hell does. TV words possess a wide variety of nuances. To break bad can mean to go wild, to defy authority, and break the law, to be verbally combative, belligerent, or threatening, or followed by the preposition on, to dominate or humiliate. The concept emerged as Gilligan talked with his fellow writer Thomas Schnauz regarding their current unemployment and joked that the solution was for them to put a meth lab in the back of an RV and drive around the country cooking meth and making money. Before the series finale, Gilligan said that it was difficult to write for Walter White, because the character was so dark and morally questionable. I'm going to miss the show when it's over. But on some level, it'll be a relief to not have Walt in my head anymore." Gilligan later said the idea for Walter's character intrigued him so much that he didn't really give much thought on how well it would sell, stating that he would have given up on the premise since it was such an odd, dark story that could have difficulties being pitched to studios. As the series progressed, Gilligan and the writing staff of Breaking Bad made Walter increasingly unsympathetic. Gilligan said during the run of the series, "He's going from being a protagonist to an antagonist. We want to make people question who they're pulling for, and why." Cranston said by the 4th season, "I think Walt's figured out it's better to be a pursuer than the pursued. He's well on his way to badass." While still pitching the show to studios, Gilligan was initially discouraged when he learned of the existing series Weeds and its similarities to the premise of Breaking Bad. While his producers convinced him that the show was different enough to still be successful, he later stated that he would not have gone forward with the idea had he known about Weeds earlier. Development history. The network ordered 9 episodes for the first season, but the 2007-08 Writers Guild of America strike limited the production to 7 episodes. The initial versions of the script were set in Riverside, California, but at the suggestion of Sony, Albuquerque was chosen for the production's location due to the favorable financial conditions offered by the state of New Mexico. Once Gilligan recognized that this would mean we'd always have to be avoiding the Sandia Mountains, in shots directed toward the east, the story setting was changed to the actual production location. It was shot primarily on 35mm film, with digital cameras employed as needed for additional angles, point-of-view shots and time-lapse photography. Breaking Bad reportedly cost $3 million per episode to produce, higher than the average cost for a basic cable program. In July 2011, Vince Gilligan indicated that he intended to conclude Breaking Bad at the end of its 5th season. In early August 2011, negotiations began over a deal regarding the 5th and possible final season between the network AMC and Sony Pictures Television, the production company of the series. AMC proposed a shortened 5th season to cut costs, but the producers declined. Sony then approached other cable networks about possibly picking up the show if a deal could not be made. On August 14, 2011, AMC renewed the series for a 5th and final season consisting of 16 episodes. In terms of Breaking Bad's immense global popularity, Gilligan thanked the on-demand video service Netflix at the Emmy Awards in September 2013. He even went as far as to say that Netflix kept us on the air. Casting. Breaking Bad creator Vince Gilligan cast Bryan Cranston for the role of Walter White based on having worked with him in an episode of the science fiction television series The X-Files, on which Gilligan worked as a writer. Cranston played an anti-Semite with a terminal illness who took series co-protagonist Fox Mulder hostage. Gilligan said the character had to be simultaneously loathsome and sympathetic, and that Bryan alone was the only actor who could do that, who could pull off that trick. And it is a trick. I have no idea how he does it. AMC officials, who were initially reluctant with the casting choice, having known Cranston only as the over-the-top character Hal on the comedy series Malcolm in the Middle, approached actors John Cusack and Matthew Broderick about the role. When both actors declined, the executives were persuaded to cast Cranston after seeing his X-Files episode. Cranston contributed significantly to the formation and development of the Walter White persona. When Gilligan left much of Walter's past unexplained during the development of the series, the actor wrote his own backstory for the character. At the start of the show, Cranston gained 10 pounds to reflect the character's personal decline and had the natural red highlights of his hair dyed a regular brown. He collaborated with costume designer Kathleen Detterer on a wardrobe of mostly neutral green and brown colors to make the character bland and unremarkable, and worked with makeup artist Frida Valenzuela to create a mustache he described as impotent and like a dead caterpillar. Cranston repeatedly identified elements in certain scripts where he disagreed with how the character was handled, and went so far as to call Gilligan directly when he could not work out disagreements with the episode's screenwriters. Cranston has said he was inspired partially by his elderly father for how Walter carries himself physically, which he described as a little hunched over, never erect, as if The weight of the world is on this man's shoulders. In contrast to his character, Cranston has been described as extremely playful on set, with Aaron Paul describing him as a kid trapped in a man's body. Gilligan originally intended for Aaron Paul's character, Jesse Pinkman, to be killed at the end of Breaking Bad's first season in a botched drug deal as a plot device to plague Walt White with guilt. However, Gilligan said by the second episode of the season, he was so impressed with Paul's performance that it became pretty clear early on that would be a huge, colossal mistake to kill off Jesse. Scientific accuracy. Donna Nelson, a professor of organic chemistry at the University of Oklahoma, checked scripts and provided dialogue. She also drew chemical structures and wrote chemical equations which were used as props. According to creator Vince Gilligan, Dr. Donna Nelson from the University of Oklahoma approached us several seasons back and said, "I really like this show, and if you ever need help with the chemistry, I'd love to lend a hand." She's been a wonderful advisor. We get help wherever we need it, whether it's chemistry, electrical engineering, or physics. We try to get everything correct. There's no full-time advisor on set, but we run certain scenes by these experts first. Because Walter White was talking to his students, I was able to dumb down certain moments of description and dialogue in the early episodes which held me until we had some help from some honest-to-God chemists, says Gilligan. According to Gilligan, Nelson vets our scripts to make sure our chemistry dialogue is accurate and up to date. We also have a chemist with the Drug Enforcement Administration based out of Dallas who has just been hugely helpful to us. Nelson spoke of Gilligan's interest in having the science right. He said it made a difference to him. In 2013, 2 scenes from the first season of Breaking Bad were put under scrutiny in a Mythbusters Breaking Bad special. Despite several modifications to what was seen in the show, both the scenes depicted in the show were shown to be physically impossible. In the Crazy Handful of Nothing episode, Walt produces a batch of fulminated mercury in crystalline form and threatens to raze Tuco Salamanca's office to the ground. Although the compound is unstable, Mythbusters has shown that Walt would have needed a much greater quantity of the compound along with a much faster throwing velocity, and that he and everyone else would have died from the concussive blast. Jason Wallach of Vice magazine commended the accuracy of the cooking methods presented in the series. In early episodes, a once common clandestine route, the Nagai red phosphorus/iodine method, is depicted, which uses pseudoephedrine as a precursor to D-methamphetamine. By the season 1 finale, Walt chooses to use a different synthetic route based on the difficulty of acquiring enough pseudoephedrine to produce on the larger scale required. The new method Walt chooses is a reductive amination reaction, relying on phenyl-2-propanone and methylamine. On the show, the phenyl-2-propanone is produced from phenylacetic acid and acetic acid using a tube furnace and thorium dioxide as a catalyst, as mentioned in episodes A No Rough Stuff Type Deal and Mass. Peer-to-peer and methylamine form an imine intermediate. Reduction of this peer-to-peer methylamine imine intermediate is performed using mercury-aluminium amalgam, as shown in several episodes including Hazard Pay. One of the important plot points in the series is that the crystal meth Walter cooks has very long crystals, is very pure, and has a strong cyan blue color. Truly ultra-pure crystal meth would tend to be clear or white. In their article, Die Chemie bei Breaking Bad, on Chemie in unserer Zeit, Tunga Salthammer and Falk Harnisch discuss the plausibility of the chemistry portrayed in certain scenes. According to the two, chemistry is clearly depicted as a manufacturing science without much explanation of analytical methods being provided. On the other hand, serious scientific subjects are mixed into the dialogue in order to show a world where chemistry plays a key role. Technical aspects. Michael Slovis was the cinematographer of Breaking Bad beginning with the second season, and he received critical acclaim for his work throughout the series. Critics appreciated the bold visual style adopted by the TV series. Although series creator Vince Gilligan and Slovis wanted to shoot Breaking Bad in CinemaScope, Sony and AMC did not grant them permission. Gilligan cited Sergio Leone's westerns as a reference for how he wanted the series to look. For his work, He received 4 Primetime Emmy Award nominations for Outstanding Cinematography for a 1-hour series and Outstanding Cinematography for a single-camera series. Kelly Dixon was one of the editors of Breaking Bad and edited many of the series' meth montages. For the montages, she would use techniques such as jump cuts and alternating the speed of the film, either faster or slower. For her work, she received 6 Primetime Emmy Award nominations for Outstanding Single-Camera Picture Editing for a Drama Series and won the award in 2013. Moral consequences. In an interview with the New York Times, creator Vince Gilligan said the larger lesson of the series is that actions have consequences. He elaborated on the show's philosophy in a piece comparing the show to The Sopranos, Mad Men, and The Wire. Chuck Klosterman said that Breaking Bad is built on the uncomfortable premise that there is an irrefutable difference between what's right and what's wrong. And it's the only one where the characters have real control over how they choose to live. Klosterman added that the central question of Breaking Bad is, what makes a man bad, his actions, his motives, or his conscious decision to be a bad person? Klosterman concluded that, in the world of Breaking Bad, goodness and badness are simply complicated choices, no different than anything else. Ross Douthat of the New York Times, in a response to Klosterman's piece, compared Breaking Bad and The Sopranos, stating that both series are morality plays that are both interested in moral agency. Douthat went on to say that Walter White and Tony Soprano represent mirror image takes on the problem of evil, damnation, and free will. Walter is a man who deliberately abandons the light for the darkness, while Tony is someone born and raised in darkness, who turns down opportunity after opportunity to claw his way upward to the light. Devotion to family. The show explores most of the main characters' connections to their families in great detail. Walt justifies his decision to cook crystal meth and become a criminal because of his desire to provide for his family. In the 3rd season he tries to exit the business because it has driven Skyler to leave him. Gus convinces him to stay, telling him it is a man's job to provide for his family, even if he is unloved. In the final episode of the series, however, Walt finally admits to Skyler that the main motivation for his endeavors in the meth business was his own interest. In spite of secretly securing the $9.72 million he had managed to salvage for her and the children, Jesse's loneliness in the early seasons of the show can be partly explained by his parents' decision to kick him out of their home due to his drug-related activities. This parental disconnect brings him closer to Jane, whose father berates her for her drug use. When Walt crosses paths with Jane's father, Walt refers to Jesse as his nephew and laments the fact that he cannot get through to him. Jane's father responds by telling him to keep trying, saying, "Family. You can't give up on them, ever. What else is there?" Jane's subsequent death, which Walt purposefully did not prevent, is a major factor in her father causing the airline crash at the end of the 2nd season. Even the show's more hardened characters maintain ties to family. In the 2nd season, Tuco Salamanca spends time caring for his physically disabled uncle, Hector. When Tuco is killed by Hank, his cousins vow revenge. Their actions are further explained in a flashback, where Hector explains to the brothers that La Familia es to do. Gustavo Fring's franchise Los Polos Hermanos translates to the Chicken Brothers. This refers to the fact that the company was co-founded by Gus and a man named Max, with whom he shared a close personal connection. When Max is killed by Hector Salamanca, Gus vows to destroy the Salamanca family. In the first part of the 5th season, it is explained that Mike Ehrmantraut's intentions for being in this business were to provide for his granddaughter's future. And by his final episode he is conflicted when having to leave her in a park by herself once he has been warned that the police are onto him. During the 2nd part of the 5th season, white supremacist Jack Welker says, "Don't skimp on family," and he lets Walt live after capturing him in the desert. Because of love for his nephew Todd Arquist, who has great respect for Walt, Lydia Rodarte Quayle repeatedly demands that if Mike insists on killing her, that he leave her in her apartment so her daughter can find her, fearful she will think Lydia abandoned her. Much like Walt and Mike, Lydia seems to engage in the meth business in order to provide for her daughter, with actress Laura Fraser stating in an interview that Lydia's daughter is important to how Lydia justified what she did to herself. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?